This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Mark Martin. President Trump is pulling all 2,000 U.S. troops out of Syria. The announcement came yesterday as Trump declared victory over ISIS, a controversial move that goes against the assessment of his own experts. The decision has many lawmakers within the president's own party outraged. Senators Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio both say they were blindsided by the news, especially in light of recent statements made by administration officials that the mission is not complete.
If we've learned one thing over the years, enduring defeat of a group like this means you can't just defeat their physical space and then leave. You have to make sure the internal security forces are in place to ensure that those security gains are enduring.
President Trump, though, says it's time to bring the troops home. Many are comparing the move to former President Obama's decision to prematurely pull out of Iraq, which led to the rise of ISIS. CBN's Jenna Browder joins us now to help us break it all down. Jenna, what are the possible repercussions here?
Hi, Mark. Well, the big worry is that this could weaken the United States' influence in that region of the world. And we spoke with Andrew Gable with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, and that's exactly what he said. He said that the United States stands to lose a lot of leverage in places like Syria, Turkey, Iran, and Russia.
Will the pullout also hurt some of our allies?
It will. There's fear that this could really hurt the Kurds who have been fighting alongside the United States to fight ISIS. The fear is that if the United States backs away, the Kurds will back away as well, and Turkey will go in, and there won't be anyone to push back against ISIS. So a lot of the president's critics and people who want to remain there in Syria are saying that this could really hurt the United States.
Does President Trump have support from any lawmakers on this issue?
He does. Most are blasting him. We heard Senator Lindsey Graham and Marco Rubio and many others yesterday on the Hill criticizing the president for his decision, and they say they were blindsided. But there are others like Rand Paul from Kentucky who say this was the right move. He says that the United States can't be the police officer of the world and needs to back out. We can't be everywhere at all times. And he agrees with the president that the time is now, Mark, to pull out of Syria.
All right, Jenna Browder reporting from our D.C. Bureau. Thanks, Jenna, for that.
Thanks, Mark.
Paul Ryan said goodbye to Congress Wednesday after 3 years as the Speaker of the House, a 2012 vice presidential run, and some 2 decades as a representative for Wisconsin. Speaking at the Library of Congress, where he first laid out his vision to fix America's entitlement programs, Ryan called the failure to overhaul those programs our great unfinished business. Ryan oversaw major changes to the tax code after the passage of last year's signature tax cut bill.
Well done is always a better pursuit than well said, isn't it? In this business, you catch slings and arrows. It is a price that I have been happy to pay, because nothing is as fulfilling as pursuing an idea that will truly make a difference in people's lives and seeing it through from start to finish.
Ryan told CBN News earlier this year that his faith is an integral part of his life as a husband, father, and Speaker of the House. The Speaker announced this spring he would not run for re-election, saying that he wanted his children to remember him as more than just a weekend dad. Lawmakers in Washington are in the midst of a bipartisan spending spree, which can be expensive for taxpayers, with the federal budget deficit projected to hit $1 trillion this year. Washington racked up a $305 billion deficit in October and November alone. That's up from $202 billion during the same time last year. Major deficits like that are expected to drive the national debt from $21 trillion to $33 trillion within 10 years. Russell Vought is the deputy director at the Office of Budget and Management. He said people should be concerned because the rising debt is a major problem.
Russ, what do you say for people calling out for demands for tax increases to kind of offset the debt?
Well, this is where we would have a dispute with them. We don't think that the revenue side is where the problem is. You look at what Americans spend in food, clothing, and shelter, and it amounts to about $4.6 trillion, right? We don't think that, and that's generally what we spend in terms, or what we take in revenue. We don't want to cause them, the American family, the American taxpayer, to have to absorb a greater share of responsibility.
Vaught says one way is to find spending programs that are no longer used or inefficient, and says Congress needs to exercise spending restraint. And you can see our full report on the deficit and interview with Russell Vaught, as he also talks about his faith and how it shapes his work in Washington. Taking a look now at other headlines for you from the CBN newsroom. The Federal Reserve has raised interest rates for the fourth time this year, but Chairman Jerome Powell expects to slow its rate hikes next year. The recent increase has lifted the Fed's benchmark to its highest point since 2008. The new rate will mean higher borrowing costs for many consumers and businesses. The recent hike is already being blamed for pushing down home sales across the country. The Senate has approved legislation to temporarily fund the government in order to avoid a federal shutdown. The measure will keep agencies and offices open until February, but it will not include the $5 billion President Trump requested for a border wall. Instead, the stopgap measure will fund border security and other programs. The bill is headed to the House next. It must also be approved there and then signed by the president. Massive storms are on the move just as millions set out for holiday travels. A storm is forming in the south, bringing massive amounts of rain to New Orleans and West Texas. And the storm that brought a rare December tornado to Washington state is also on the move. Those two storms are set to merge and could potentially cause nightmare travel for nearly 120 million people who are traveling along the East Coast. The UN Security Council met to discuss Hezbollah. Instead of the meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called for action against the Iranian-backed organization. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl reports his latest evidence is the tunnel system the terror group dug under the border with Israel.
This is not merely an act of aggression, it's an act of war.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke about the Hezbollah tunnels crossing into Israel and pointed to Iran for backing the terrorists.
Hezbollah is doing all this because Iran supports it in every way, including with money that it got from the flawed Iran deal. And this is part of the Iranian web of aggression.
Netanyahu said Hezbollah was committing a double war crime.
It's targeting Israeli civilians while hiding behind Lebanese civilians. That's a double war crime. The people of Lebanon have to understand that Hezbollah is putting them in jeopardy. And we expect Lebanon to take action.
Netanyahu spoke ahead of the UN Security Council meeting, where Lebanon fired back.
Lebanese officials accorded the problem of the tunnels the utmost careful attention, fearing, rightly so, that Israel might use it as a pretext to threaten the stability of Lebanon.
IDF spokesman Jonathan Conricus called the tunnels Hezbollah's surprise weapon against Israel and one of the organization's biggest secrets.
The IDF has been able to locate this tunnel by analyzing Hezbollah's aforementioned attack plan that they call Conquering the Galilee, by using sophisticated technology, and by monitoring changes to the soil and terrain.
IDF analysis even shows how the discovery of one burned tree in the middle of a forest in 2016 made a difference.
This is a zoom in on that specific tree after it was burned. That, of course, was an indicative sign for us to pay attention. We also saw new signs of trails being utilized in the area. All of the above, in addition to input from various specialists and advanced technology, allowed us to locate and expose this attack tunnel.
Netanyahu says the international community needs to hold both Iran and Lebanon accountable.
So I call on all the members of the Security Council to condemn Hezbollah's wanton acts of aggression, to designate Hezbollah in its entirety as a terrorist organization, to press for heightened sanctions against Hezbollah, to demand that Lebanon stop allowing its territory to be used as an act of aggression and its citizens to be used as pawns, to support Israel's right to defend itself against Iranian-inspired and Iranian-conducted aggression.
The UN said it viewed the tunnels as a matter of serious concern, a violation of UN Resolution 1701, and called on Lebanon to disable any tunnels crossing the blue line. But it's unlikely the UN will meet Netanyahu's demands. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Coming up, what the United States can learn from what some consider a real identity crisis for Canada.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
You probably haven't noticed, but our neighbor to the north is having an identity crisis. Canada has embarked on a radical national experiment with profound changes that could lead down a dangerous road. Dale Hurd has that story.
When Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his country is a post-national state and has no core identity, no one should be surprised when some start asking if Canada is even a country. But the identity crisis facing Canada is not only multifaceted, it's serious and could one day have a direct impact on the United States. Canada is in the midst of, as one writer put it, a civilizational experiment that's transforming a Western nation into a post-Western nation. And this revolution is centered around the cult of diversity.
Your Canada.
Here's one version of Justin Trudeau's post-national, post-Western Canada, transformed by diversity.
Oh, Canada, you stand for everybody.
The question is not whether Canada should welcome immigrants. The question, according to Toronto Sun columnist and SiriusXM Canada host Anthony Fury, is whose values should win the day.
In Canada right now, it's labeled bizarrely xenophobic and anti-immigrant, and they throw around terms like racism to no end. If you simply say, I'd like us all to integrate here and live together in a compatible way.
Throughout their histories, both Canada and America have welcomed immigrants of all backgrounds. But Canada, rather than being a melting pot like the U.S., has said that it is a mosaic of many cultures. The problem begins when the Canadian mosaic includes more and more radical Islamists who favor undemocratic values under Sharia law. Prime Minister Trudeau welcomed almost 50,000 refugees from the Middle East in 2016 alone, and has even welcomed returning ISIS fighters, saying in an interview that they could be a powerful voice.
And a lot of people, probably the silent majority, are saying, I'm unhappy with this, including new immigrants who came to Canada, whether it's a year ago or a decade or 3 decades ago, who say, no, I came to Canada for a reason, because I wanted Canadian values and I was escaping values in other countries.
One immigrant who would like more Canadian values is pro-Western Muslim Tahir Gora, founder of Tag TV in Toronto, a network with a large international audience. He's also a co-author of Submission, The Danger of Political Islam to Canada, with a warning to America.
I moved to this beautiful country because of its Canadian culture. People like me escaped Pakistan or Middle East or the Muslim world, came to Canada, and some went to United States with the hope that they will be left alone by those radical Islamists. But now we see those Islamists roaming around in this part of the world.
Tariq Fatah is a journalist, writer, and founder of the Muslim Canadian Congress. An immigrant from Pakistan and a proud Canadian, Fatah says the Canadian left, which in his words is sinking in white guilt, now accepts and even celebrates undemocratic radical Islamic beliefs and practices. He likens it to a circus.
It considers radical Islam as a phenomena that needs to be embraced because it's so curious. So we as Muslims are considered as circus animals. We need to perform in a way. And the white left liberal feminist class would sit in ringside seats and say, how lovely. Just look at that monkey jump up and down. Or that elephant stood up on his 2 feet. Honey, did you see that? Oh, it's breathtaking.
Another facet of Canada's identity crisis can be seen in the growing trend of what are called land acknowledgements.
We want to begin by acknowledging the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples on which Wilfrid Laurier University's campuses sit.
Land acknowledgements are recited daily on campuses and in schools across Canada, and they essentially declare that Canada is an occupier.
We respectfully acknowledge the territory
in which we gather as the ancestral homelands of the Beothuk and the island of Newfoundland,
as the ancestral homelands
of the Mi'kmaq and Beothuk.
These continue even though a poll this year found that most Canadians do not believe Native peoples should have a special status and that the government should stop apologizing for past wrongs. The culture that is under fire here is traditional Canadian Christian culture. Ottawa resident Alexandra Belair grew up behind the Iron Curtain in communist Czechoslovakia, and she sees some disturbing parallels between life under communism and life in politically correct Canada.
What do you say to someone who says, that's preposterous, I can say whatever I want in Canada? How can you compare it to the Soviet world?
But you can't say anything you want. Because I was a daughter of a political dissident, teachers would take the time to berate me and say bad things about me in front of the whole classroom, because that way they were proving they weren't showing favoritism to the dissident's daughter, right? Now my friend's daughter was in school and she was being shamed for being too Christian. How's that different? How is that different? She was being shamed for feeling very patriotic Canadian. How is that different for being shamed for being a dissident's daughter?
There's a saying here that the world needs more Canada. But if current trends continue, the world is going to get less of Canada, as Canadian identity is swallowed up in a left-wing multicultural experiment. Dale Hurd, CBN News, in Toronto and Ottawa.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
More and more people are turning to essential oils for everything from health needs to house cleaning. Lori Johnson tells us why they are turning to these natural solutions that have been around since biblical days.
Like millions of Americans, Sarah Hilburn struggled with emotional issues that led to physical ones.
I had gotten to the point where my anxiety and depression was keeping me from sleeping at night. I would spend several days out of the week just being awake the entire night, being awake the entire day.
Instead of seeking a prescription for Ambien or Lunesta, she turned to lavender oil.
I can honestly say that essential oil saved my life.
Putting the oil in a vaporizer next to her bed helped her begin getting more rest and in turn feeling happier.
I diffuse the lavender usually by itself just because it's very calming and it smells really good and it makes me sleepy.
Sarah also found other benefits. She puts cooling peppermint oil on her feet when she's feeling overheated and credits rose oil for her flawless complexion. Oils extracted from plants have been used for medicinal purposes for centuries, but just in recent years, essential oils have exploded in popularity. In his best-selling book, The Healing Power of Essential Oils, Dr. Eric Zielinski explains how to use dozens of these natural extracts.
You know, the Bible says the leaves of the trees are for the healing of the nations. I can think of no other substance on the planet that epitomizes that like essential oils.
Essential oils come from distilling parts of plants like the root, bark, flowers, and leaves.
When you inhale citrus essential oils specifically, like orange, neroli, bergamot, lime, and lemon, it's been shown clinically to help decrease anxiety, decrease depression, and boost your mood. A lot of research being done with cinnamon and blood pressure balancing, so whether someone's diabetic, someone's obese, there's a lot of things you could do.
Even many pills we take mimic what's in nature. Aspirin, for example, is modeled after willow bark, which people used for centuries as a pain reliever.
So next time your son or daughter, your grandson, your granddaughter gets a fever, you can apply some diluted peppermint or orange oil on his or her back, and you'll see the fever go down. Next time you get a sore throat, you could gargle with a little bit of myrrh essential oil and water. Next time you get a headache, you can apply some pain-relieving oils like frankincense or copaiba.
And benefits go beyond relying on the medicine cabinet. Dr. Zielinski and his wife Sabrina use essential oils instead of store-bought synthetics throughout their home, from body lotion to deodorant and beyond. More people who are concerned about the chemicals in household cleaners are choosing essential oils because they clean naturally. Sabrina makes her own laundry detergent using ylang-ylang. No chemicals and about $20 to wash 150 loads.
So when you're thinking about not just your kids, but your animals as well, it's really important to choose the right things when you're cleaning.
That includes mixtures for dusting, cleaning glass, granite, and even tougher jobs.
But what about like your all-purpose cleaner? What about, you know, my stove? Is this really gonna work on the stove? Yes. Usually it has an orange, a clove, a cinnamon, a eucalyptus. It smells amazing. I mean, wait till you smell this. You're gonna be like, wow, that smells like Thanksgiving.
In just minutes, you can whip up hand sanitizer.
All you need is a 2-ounce glass spritzer bottle, 10 drops of essential oil. My favorite is lemon. Then you need 10 drops of witch hazel, 10 drops of a grain alcohol, and then you fill the rest of the bottle up with either purified or distilled water. Shake and go.
Since essential oils are highly concentrated, it's best to dilute them using what's known as a carrier oil, like jojoba. And watch out for fakes.
It is absolutely necessary to only use pure essential oils. What most people don't recognize is what a lot of these manufacturers are doing are synthetically adding different chemicals to essential oils and to other compounds to make them smell sweeter. And that's where you get your plugins from, your aerosols. And they've been linked to a number of diseases, neurotoxicity, cancer. We're talking Alzheimer's and dementia.
He recommends organic oils indigenously sourced with a batch report showing they're the real deal. So these days, Americans increasingly turn to natural, wonderful-smelling essential oils for healing, personal care, and around the house. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
While most of us are getting ready to spend time with family this Christmas, some of our military members are deployed overseas away from their loved ones this holiday. But one family in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania got an early Christmas gift. As you can see, a member of the Hart family unwrapped the only gift he asked for this Christmas. It's not a bike, it's not a basketball hoop or a video game, it's his dad. Yeah, the little boy, he's left speechless and melts into the arms of his father. That long overdue hug lasted for a long time, and that is what Christmas is all about. Wow. What a great shot there. You can just linger on that for a while. That's all the time we have for now. Be sure to visit cbnnews.com for your news anytime, and watch us on the CBN News channel. Check your local listings or watch on demand at our website. Until next time, goodbye and God bless.